Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well. Welcome to tonight's bonus. Before we jump into this kind of mixture of cryptid and paranormal experiences, a couple links. As many of you do know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. The merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They all were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost you a cent. Click that like button. Takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of these informative videos, please click that bell icon and folks, leave a comment. Why? Well, because these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go, and yes, they definitely matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to tonight's bonus, shall we? Today's first part of the upload. Bigfoot, the historical record. Sightings of a giant, hairy, bipedal animal predates the modern era. Over 170 years ago, the Arkansas wild man terrified residents of that state. The first published report in 1846 claimed a footprint was discovered in eastern Arkansas that measured 22 inches. In 1851, the Vermont Watchman and State Journal reported that two men were hunting Greene County, Arkansas, when they saw something bearing the unmistakable likeness of a human chasing a herd of cattle. It was gigantic, the body being covered with hair and had long locks that fairly enveloped its neck and shoulder. The creature stopped, stared at them for a few moments, and ran back into the patch of woods. With great speed, leaping from 12 to 14 feet at a time, the newspaper went on to explain sightings of the wild man had been reported in St. Francis, Greene, and Poinsett County since 1834. Many local residents believed the wild man was a human survivor of the great 1811 to 1812 New Madrid earthquake, who had turned feral while living in the woods. Two prominent Memphis men organized a search party to try to capture it, but nothing else is known of their attempt. According to the Ashland, Ohio Union, the elusive creature was spotted again near the Sunflower Prairie during the winter of 1856, and some men gave chase with hunting dogs. The wild man tried to flee across the frozen Brant Lake, but the ice was too thin, and he retreated back to the bank. The first man who arrived reported seeing an athletic man about 6'4", covered in hair of brownish cast. Although within easy range, the hunter decided to capture the wild man rather than shoot him. It was a bad idea, according to the newspaper. The wild man bounded upon him, dragged him from the saddle, and tore him in a dreadful manner, gouging one of his eyes and biting a large piece of his shoulder. He then threw the saddle and brindle of the horse and mounted. He set off into the mountains at full speed, guiding the horse with the pace of a sapling. 12 years later, the Mississippi wild man was encountered in southwest Mississippi, according to the Cambria Freeman. A similar creature had been seen near Vicksburg 1 year before. In the former incident, some hunters were following a pack of dogs hot on the trail of an unknown animal when they discovered a footprint in the mud. It appeared similar to the track of a human foot, and they observed also that the toes of one foot turned backwards. Many local residents believed the wild man was a human survivor of the great 1811 through 1812 New Madrid earthquake who had turned feral while living in the woods. When the dogs finally bayed their prey, the men beheld a frightful-looking creature of about the average height of a man, but of far greater muscular development, standing menacingly in front of the dogs. It had long hair flowing from its head, reaching to its knees. Its entire body also seemed to be covered with hair of 2 or 3 inch length, which was dark brown in color. From its upper jaw protracted 2 very large tusks, several inches long. The wild man ran towards the Mississippi River when the men advanced, but the dogs once again bayed him at the river bank. When the dogs attacked, it reached forward and grabbed one of them, pressing it against its tusk, piercing it through and killing it instantly. The hunters fired several shots, and the creature jumped into the river and remained submerged for several minutes. Suddenly it surfaced, uttering shrieks which almost petrified the pursuers in terror. No similar sound had ever come to the ears of the men, who were familiar with the howl of a wolf, the whine of a panther, and the hoarse bellowing of an alligator. After sinking and rising several times, it swam to the Louisiana shore and disappeared. Some time later, other wild men were reported near Vicksburg and Meadville. What's interesting about Mississippi wild man is people believe it to be an unknown creature, not a feral human, and did not ridicule the witness. The newspaper even suggested that the area around Meadville is suitable for such animals. Throughout Franklin County, there are retreats especially adapted to accommodation of wild beasts, such as the high barren hills, ravines, and dense vine-matted swamp of the Homochito River. Just want to interject on something really quick. Back when we were talking and everyone was thinking about when I brought up the Hood County, Texas attack, the gentleman who was killed, and the county sheriff is saying it's a bobcat. They ruled out homicide, suicide, yet the Texas Wildlife Division is saying, no, it's not a bobcat, a panther. They're saying, no, it's not a panther or mountain lion, yada, yada. But what was interesting is there was a nickel, he was tore up very badly, but there was a nickel-sized hole in his chest. It was not a bullet hole, but it was a nickel-sized hole. So now I've been hearing lots and reading lots lately about these wild men / Sasquatch / caveman, troglodyte, whatever. And these tusks have been popping up more and more. And it's just kind of interesting because maybe, just maybe, the guy in Hood County, Texas, in Lippin, was savaged by a wild man and not a dog man. Who knows? A funny thing, though, and we'll get back to some more, but I remember when Victor was talking about his last hunt. And last night I was talking about the Alabama 1877 22-foot Sasquatch that was killed in the swamps. I actually emailed the newspaper to get a copy of that. And I'll be talking about that probably in the next couple of days. But that just kind of verified what Victor had said with the 19-foot. And it was labeled as a troglodyte. And then some subscriber, I believe it was a woman, I think her name was quote-unquote Karen. Probably not, though, but she was definitely a Karen. And she proceeded to tell us what troglodyte meant. Like, we all don't know. I mean, according to, her, we are imbeciles. So, but if she, Karen, the imbecile, was familiar with the troglodyte, it's a cave-dwelling, like, wild man. Just perfectly fits. Anyway, back to the upload. This is where things get real interesting, guys. Albert Ostman, circa 1893 to 1975, was a Canadian prospector who reported that he was abducted by a Sasquatch and held captive for 6 days. He stated that the event took place near Toba Inlet, British Columbia, 1924. Here's the encounter. In 1924, Albert Ostman, a lumberjack and woodsman, went to the area for vacation. Ostman had heard stories about man-beasts who supposedly roamed these woods but refused to believe in them. As Ostman lay asleep one evening, a Sasquatch reportedly picked him up and carried him off while he was sleeping in his sleeping bag. Ostman was carried in his sleeping bag across the country for 3 hours by this Squatch. The Sasquatch dropped Ostman down by the plateau. Standing around him was a family of 4 of these creatures. Albert was kept captive by the Sasquatch family. The captors were 3 adults and a child, which held Ostman captive for 6 days. One of the Bigfoot was reported to be 8 feet tall. Ostman did not use his gun on them, as they had not done him any harm. He stayed with the family for a week. Ostman ate sweet-tasting grass that they gave him. According to Ostman, the female Sasquatch washed and stacked leaves. Albert escaped by making a large male Sasquatch groggy by feeding him some snuff. He didn't tell his story for more than 24 years after it happened, for fear of being thought that he was crazy. As more Sasquatch stories appeared in the press, Albert decided to tell his story to a local newspaper, The Province, in 1957. On August 1957, police magistrate A.M. Neesmith wrote an affidavit which states, "I found Mr. Ostman to be a man of 64 years of age, in full possession of his mental faculties, pleasant manner, and good sense of humor. I questioned Mr. Ostman thoroughly in reference to the story given by Mr. Green. I cross-examined him and used every means to endeavor to find a flaw in either his personality or his story, but I could find neither." Albert Ostman also signed a solemn declaration indicating that his account of the Sasquatch story was true, under oath and by virtue of the Canadian Evidence Act. In 2007, the skeptic Joe Nickel characterized the story as more likely the result of an imagination than a recollection. Critics of Ostman note that he did not make the event public until 1857, 33 years later after he said it took place. Primatologist John Napier states that Ostman's story fails to convince me primarily on the grounds of limited food resources available. Bigfoot researcher Peter Brine cannot accept Ostman's story without more evidence. Well, primatologist and Bigfoot researcher Peter Brine, or whoever his name is, ass nuts. Why? You weren't there. Why can't you believe it? It sounds pretty freaking real to me. And then the Napier dude, there's not limited food sources. Bullshit, there's limited food sources in the woods in Canada. These things can hunt. They can eat berries. They've lived. Like, they'd be saying, like, a Native American small pod or tribe or whatever, just still living, like, in the wild. Not even Native Americans. Let's just say a small group of indigenous people, any country you pick, put them, this small indigenous group, 5 people, 2 female, 3 males, 1 child out of it. So it's 2 female, 2 males, 1 child. It doesn't matter the sex of the child. You put them anywhere other than a barren desert, and I guarantee they will thrive because they have not forgotten the basic instincts that we're given. I mean, they've lived in the wild. They know pretty much by watching other animals what is edible and what is not. And they can make rudimentary lodging. So, I mean, a primatologist is claiming it to be BS. And Peter Brine, B-Y-R-N-E, dick nuts. If you're a Bigfoot researcher, why are you going to say, cannot accept Ostman's story with more evidence? Dude, you're an ass. All right? You should have no business researching. Okay? Well, yeah, have all the business you want researching, but at least, you know, I mean, you're believing that there's a 9-foot creature in the woods. We are already labeled crazy. Well, why can't you believe this, guys? Because it sounds pretty freaking real to me. And he didn't share it. Years later, he did. You know, he wasn't looking for fame and fortune. It's just, I don't even know. People, the gall of some people, I tell you. Today's third part of the upload. About 10 years ago in a little town outside of Toulouse, France, right after dark, waiting for a restaurant to open, our big group of family Americans took a walk up a hill to look at the town graveyard from the road. Walking back, we could see the whole town below us, the road ahead lined with stone walls in front of houses. About 100 yards ahead, illuminated by a streetlight, I see a huge black dog-shaped thing leave our side of the sidewalk, lope in the middle of the street, raise up on its hind legs, and quickly scale and disappear over an 8-foot stone wall. There were cars and bushes and gates to use for visual scale, and this thing was tall, like 7 to 8 feet. Picture the werewolf from the film Prisoner of Azkaban. Yep, spot on. My family was chattering away about whatever, but I said, "Did you guys see that?" And my son says, "Oh yeah, that was a fucking werewolf." We walked by the same spot a minute later, and everyone was laughing at us, but screw that. Today's fourth encounter. I had an encounter about 20-30 minutes away from the hot spot of Taylor, Mississippi. I was 15 years old, and myself, my uncle, and a couple of cousins went coon hunting about 15 minutes down the road from my house. We got there and shot the shit for a little bit before turning out the hounds. I had a black and tan that I've never seen back down from anything, but when I opened the door to the dog box, he wouldn't budge, and his hair was rolled up all the way down his back. I thought maybe a coyote because he was missing part of his ear because one of them. Then a smell hit my nose that I can't even begin to describe. It was just horrible. So I got curious and shined my light to the stand of pines about 20-25 yards ahead, and got eye shine that slowly started to rise and stopped about 7 to 8 feet. And I don't know what to think, so I told my uncle, who got his expensive light and shined it, and we all about shit ourselves. What we saw was brown in color and had the head of a German shepherd or a husky. I swear the thing smiled at us. It wasn't snarling or growling, just sitting there. I guess it finally got tired of the light because it let out this kind of rattling growl that made us run to the trucks and fly home. Needless to say, the dogs slept in the house that night. Today's fifth part of the upload is a very interesting glitch in the Matrix. To begin my story, I must tell you that I don't drink alcohol. I'm healthy. I've never done any drugs, so I'm sure I was sober and sane. I usually leave my dog outside for the day. He just loves the grass and the sun. But at night, I take him to my bedroom to sleep with me and close the door so he won't walk around at night destroying things. A couple of months ago, I remember that I left my dog outside at night because my nephew was scared of dogs, and he was going to spend the night. So I'm 100% sure my dog didn't sleep in my room at all. Here's the glitch. So the morning, I wake up alone in my room. I opened my room's door and heard my big sister yelling at my dog, telling him to get out. My middle sister was in the living room, just downstairs from where my room is. As I'm walking down the stairs, my big sister tells me to give him a heads up next time I let the dogs get out of my room because he scared my nephew. So I told her that I didn't let him out of my room because he didn't sleep there at all, and that I thought she had let him inside from the backyard. Both of my sisters looked at me with a lot of confusion in their face and told me that when I opened the door, my dog came running down the stairs and that the backyard door was closed, so he couldn't have gotten inside any other way. They were 100% sure that he came from my room. Here's my side of the story. I explained that there was no way my dog slept there with me, and that I couldn't have noticed him because he always makes a lot of noise with his paws, and always wakes me up by licking my face. As soon as I make any move, my dog runs to the door, so I'll let him out. But I'm sure that there was nothing in the doorway when I woke up. So when I opened the door and heard the yelling, I just thought that he ran inside because my sister usually leaves the backyard door slightly open, and my dog just has to scratch it to open it further so he can get inside. So that was my explanation of the whole thing. My sister, big sister's explanation, she tells me that there was no way the dog could have run inside because no one had opened the backyard door at all that morning, so he must have been inside already. My middle sister's explanation. She tells me that she was just in the living room and that the dog never went upstairs, as she would have seen him, or at least heard him with his loud claws going up the stairs. And he's a big dog, not one to go unnoticed. And that she only saw him go down the stairs just as I opened my room's door. Here's my second theory. So I told her that even if the dog was inside all night for some strange reason, hypothetically thinking that someone opened the door, didn't see him come inside, or I forgot to let him in, he couldn't have been in my room because I would have definitely noticed. So he must have slept outside of my room in the hallway. The hallway leads to my big sister's room. My big sister's second explanation. She told me there was no way that the dog was sleeping in the hallway because she would have seen him in the morning when she got out of her room. Side note, if my dog would have slept in the hallway, there was no way my sister could have not noticed him. He would have greeted her or ran downstairs as soon as he heard some noise or voices. So where did my dog come from? I don't think he has learned how to open doors and be as quiet as a ninja to get to my room unnoticed just to go downstairs as I open my door. Usually scratches at my door when it's closed. Why didn't he do that this time? Where was he to begin with? How did he teleport to my hallway from the backyard? We're still confused to this day. They think I might have forgotten that I let him in that night, but I'm 100% sure I made the conscious decision to not let him in that night because of my nephew having dog phobia. Tonight's final part of the upload. This fits in perfectly, and I'll tell you why. It's a Dogman or possible Dogman subscriber encounter. I was recording and it email. It came up, and I was actually reading the glitch in the Matrix, and I got the notification that a subscriber had sent an encounter. Just weird, coincidental, I guess. And I'm kind of doing an off upload today, just not all cryptids. So I just found it rather interesting that it kind of fit together like it did. So anyway, here is tonight's last part of the upload, a subscriber submission. Hello, Jeff. This is a true story from when I was on Lake Champlain. I would go to Lake Champlain and stay on the lake in cabins with friends every year when I was younger. We really enjoyed it. This was back in the mid-90s. Me and my friend Tom went to our normal place, the Sportsman Cabins, and Virgins, Vermont, as we always did. I can remember the place being packed with fishermen, as there was a bass tournament that week. Shortly after we arrived, my friend had to leave for a family emergency, so I was going to be alone for a few days at the cabin. There was a group of fishermen next to the cabin that were in the bass tournament. I kind of didn't want to hang around. I don't know why. That night I was alone. I decided to go down to my favorite fishing area. It was a tube that went into backwater from the road, a very popular fishing area on the lake. When I drove by before parking, I noticed that no one was there that night. Usually it was packed with fishermen. I was like, okay, I guess this is the best spot tonight. I parked my truck about 100 yards down the road where the area was. I walked down and set up my fishing pole. It was a great night, a nice breeze off the lake and the lights from the bridge to New York reflecting on the water. I was enjoying everything. Behind where I was fishing was a backwater area where the tube from the lake went in, and behind that was farmland. I was just enjoying the night. Nothing was biting, but it was a really nice night. I noticed that in the distance I heard a howling sound. It was pretty far away, so I wasn't worried. Not sure what it was, maybe coyote or something. The lake had such a nice breeze I could remember the lights from the distant bridge shimmering in the water. I noticed the howling noise kept getting closer. I knew that behind me was backwater, so it would be impossible for anything to cross that, but the noise was still alarming. I kept hearing this howling sound getting closer and sounding more like it was from something larger than a coyote. I've spent a lot of time in the woods, and I've heard coy dog and coyote, so I'm pretty familiar with them. It was at this point on the little edge, as the depth of the sound seemed to come from a larger, more threatening animal. You could imagine being all alone and hearing a howling sound steadily getting closer. Definitely was getting concerned. At this point, I'm looking behind me from where the noise was coming. No cars came down the road. That made it even more scarier. The howling was getting so close that it not only sounded menacing, but possibly life-threatening. I could remember it seemed to be surrounding me, and I thought that's not possible. At this point, I was suddenly feeling like I had to leave or face what was coming. I reeled in the lines and ran as fast as I could to the truck, slammed everything into the back and jumped in. This felt like a death run. When you believe something is behind and will catch you, it is scary. I started the truck and drove back to the cabins. As I was about to pull in, I noticed the fishermen next to the cabin, all out on the table, staring at me as I was about to turn, so I kept going and took the bridge to New York over to Port Henry. I parked at the first place that I could pull off. Ironically, was the Champ billboard of all the sightings in the lake. I stayed there for an hour and a half before I felt safe to return to the cabin. I believe something was out there. Sometimes it's what you don't see that's the most scariest. I'm not sure what it was, but it was large, and you wouldn't want to see what it was. Love your channel. Listen every night. Thanks, man. Alright guys, I hope you all enjoyed that bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. After all, it is your support that continues the channel to grow and go, and what makes it a place where people can share their ideas, theories, and experiences with zero ridicule, zero judgment, just treated with the respect that we all deserve. That is on you, and I appreciate it. The community you guys have created in the comment section is second to none. Everyone, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real, they are out there, and they are dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for answers, and God bless.